So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to the LpS Digital Summit 2022 under the motto, Experience the Future of Light. First of all, thank you very much for participating in this event where we welcome light and lighting experts and enthusiasts worldwide. I think we have registrations from over 30 countries. LpS is the abbreviation of LED Professional Symposium. That was an annual physical event in Austria that started back in 2011 and has been held digitally since 2 years. My name is Siegfried Luger. I'm head of Luger Research, and it's the Institute for Innovation and Technology, and I will guide you through today's program. Luger Research is the event organizer and publisher of LED Professional, Trends in Lighting, and the Global Lighting Directory. We are streaming this event from our Austrian headquarters that's close to the borders of Germany, Switzerland, and Liechtenstein. The city is Dornbirn. Yeah. Now let's directly go into the topic. The light and lighting sectors, as we all know, have undergone profound changes in the past 10 years, especially. New developments and circumstances require further adaptations. Today's event aims to highlight and discuss certain aspects of these changes, and we want to showcase you also some successful transformations. Today's program that includes 4 keynote speeches, followed by a panel discussion with the keynote speakers, and finally the closing part will be LpS Digital 22 Awards presentation. Before we directly go into the keynote session, one comment for the organization. You may use the Q&A tool to raise your questions during the keynote presentations. We will debate the questions in the panel discussion afterwards, and you also may like or thumb up questions from other participants that will give these questions a higher priority. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure now to welcome our first speaker, and that's Orania Georgotzakou, which I want to join now. Hello, Orania.
Good afternoon. Hello, Sigi.
Yeah, nice to meet you here again. I want to introduce you first, Orania. Orania joined Lighting Europe, that's the voice of the European lighting industry, as a Secretary General in April 2017, with a 15-year experience of advocating for membership associations. Especially, she worked 5 years as a director for public policy Europe for SEMI, that's the global trade association representing the manufacturing supply chain for the semiconductor and related industries. She also worked 10 years as a senior policy coordinator at the Assembly of European Regions in Brussels and Strasbourg, and where she worked directly with elected regional politicians to help and shape the implement of EU policies. During her career, Orania has worked on several issues from the EU Lisbon Treaty to the EU Services Directive, and from health to social policy and to environmental rules and e-innovation. Orania holds a degree in economics and European law. Orania, it's an honor to have you here, and the stage is yours for your presentation, Experience the Future of light in the discussion of challenges and opportunities of the lighting industry.
Thank you very much, Siggy, for the invitation, and a good afternoon to you all. It's an absolute pleasure to be back, even if it is in these online settings at an LpS Summit again. I've been invited, it's my pleasure to be here, invited to present my views on challenges and opportunities for lighting's future. Before I do that, a brief note on who I'm speaking on behalf. For those of you who may not know Lighting Europe, we are a trade association representing the companies that manufacture lighting products and place them on the EU market. So we are Brussels-based. My office is about 5 minutes walk from the headquarters of the European Commission, 10 minutes walk from the headquarters of the European Parliament and the Council. And our role is really to act as a liaison with the team here in Brussels, as a liaison between our members, the technical expertise and the business expertise of our members, and regulators, decision makers based here in Brussels. And we work also with our member national associations, because we are a hybrid membership association. We have companies as direct members and national lighting associations as members as well. And we work with those to liaise also with national governments and keep a constant dialogue going. The reason it's important what we do is, when people ask me, is because someone will always make a decision that will impact you, whether directly or indirectly. And our role is to help that someone have an educated decision and to be part of a dialogue that can help build a positive regulatory environment in Europe. And that is really our mission here in Lighting Europe. We take the vision of Europe's lighting industry of how to deliver value of lighting, not only in commercial terms and business terms, but also for people and for planet. And we try to translate that into policies and legislation that make both a positive business environment and also a positive regulatory environment. And our vision in a nutshell is that we can build on the excellent opportunities that solidification offers. All we've done already in sustainability in terms of lifetime and energy efficiency, and the work we're still doing and will continue to do. I'll talk about that in a moment, with the vision and the mission of rolling out intelligent lighting systems and offering human-centric lighting. So better lighting for people and for planet. I was invited to speak about the future of lighting, and that's not an easy topic on a Wednesday afternoon, right after lunch. For anyone who ever worked with me, who knows me a bit, you will know that this is my screensaver. It's an image of the lemon tree in my mother's garden in the suburbs of Athens. And I love this photo because I love the colors and I love the light. I love the bright blue sky and the bright lemons and the bright green leaves in Attica on a January cold morning, actually. So it's possible to have good weather in the January and in the winter. That's a good reminder when you live in Brussels. But what I love about this picture is the light and the colors. Now, cynics amongst you must think that, okay, she's going to be preparing us here for some bad news. You know, I see a lot of lemons, so it must be a sour conversation. The optimists will think, oh, maybe I'm trying to give a positive message. You know, and maybe many of you know the phrase that when life gives you lemons, just make lemonade. I'll be honest, I think it's a bit of all of the above. But I think it's important that we should never forget what fundamentally this industry is all about. We are about light, and our role is to give people, and our potential as an industry is to give people emotions and to allow them to experience beauty. And we can do that even in the dark. I'll stick to the Greek theme, by using lighting to, again, give people emotions, give people an opportunity to appreciate the beauty of their surroundings. And of course, we do the energy savings, we do the safety, we do all the rest of that. But it's important to remember that first emotional, artistic, if you like, connection that all of us fundamentally have with light. So a bit about what I'm going to be talking about here today. I see that there's no need, I think, to talk about the basic challenges of coming out of a pandemic, sort of coming out of a pandemic. In Europe, we have now a war. We see continued disruptions to our supply chains, to the market. We also see changing geopolitical dynamics. All of those are things that we can't necessarily control as an industry, but they are part of a wider environment We have new rules, new policies being made that will also impact our industry, and these we do have an influence on, and these are things that we can shape. They might seem like challenges today, but I think they're also presenting very good opportunities for Europe's lighting industry. A couple of things I want to pull out already now is the renovation wave. There's clearly a drive to make energy savings and to renovate infrastructure in order to deliver those savings, and lighting clearly can do that. But the counter side of that, the flip side of that, is that we have to remember that we are still so much more than just the energy savings. It's hard to get eaten up and lost in your maybe commercial argument of the present. We see two big policy priorities of the EU, the digital and the sustainable element. There were the two really big drives that the European Commission promised back in 2019 when they took office. They are really now growing into rules and policies and funding and investments, and also incentives for public investments and private investments. Those are great opportunities, but they also require a lot of change, and we need to be able to manage that. In particular, in the digital world, that means that we become part of a wider infrastructure with other systems, and we need to find ourselves a place in that smart world. And we also need to think, how much can we invest in it as lighting industry? Can we even keep up with all of the things that are happening to us? Let's look at these a bit more detail one by one. So first, let's go for the energy savings and the renovation wave. Like I said, it started off back in 2019 when the European Commission first took office. It said we have one major priority, sustainability, the other one digital. In sustainability, we're putting together what we call the EU Green Deal, and renovation is one big part of it. And that first policy has been continuing and has been translating into different instruments and different parameters and requirements over the years. We had a review of the legislation on the performance of buildings. We created the initiative Repower EU with the recent energy crisis to reduce dependencies and help countries transition towards green energy infrastructure and energy use, reducing energy use. Most recently, back in October, we saw even a gas demand reduction plan, which again is really about helping reduce energy demands and move towards more energy savings in order to prepare for supply cuts. So there's really a big policy put around renovation. And what's great is that everybody knows that lighting can deliver. Everybody knows that lighting can give you immediate savings at a relatively good cost and with very quick return on investment, especially now with the price of energy, right? This is a graph that I took from a report by the European Commission. It was published in, I think, May last year, and it shows you even there that the Commission knows that with the new legislation we have out on light sources and eco-design and energy labeling, they expect about 96 terawatt-hour savings in electricity by 2030. They expect really to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and also to reduce costs for consumers. And that's the Commission who says it. It's not me. There's equally an acknowledgement about the potentials of lighting systems to also deliver savings. This was done way back in, I think, 2017. The numbers are for the EU 28 market, so pre-Brexit, but still the authorities realize and have done the number crunching and know that using lighting systems with controls can deliver up to 29 terawatt-hour savings in 2030 and 56 in 2050. So everybody knows, the regulator already knows that lighting can make it happen, can really deliver. And that is now then an opportunity to take that argument, which is the regulators, the public authorities' own argument, and bring it to everybody who's looking to renovate buildings now. We have a policy to renovate up to 35 million inefficient buildings by 2030 in Europe, because we want to reduce emissions by at least 55%. And that means that everybody across Europe, all authorities will be putting together policies and financial packages to incentivize this renovation. And what we need to be doing is to make sure that lighting is part of that renovation and part of that financial assistance. The Energy Performance of Buildings Directive is putting forward targets to reduce the energy use in building. We spend a lot of time in Lighting Europe trying to educate regulators about the fact that Okay, energy savings is great, but what we really want is to have great environments indoors. People still need to continue to function. Switching everything off would be the easiest option if you're going to make savings, but it's really not the most comfortable and pleasant option if you want to live happily in a building. We put in, together with our partners from other trade associations representing other building sectors, we put together some recommendations to revise the draft text, and we've managed to introduce the concept of indoor environmental quality. So the idea that we counterbalance the energy savings with good quality environments for people. And as part of that concept, we've introduced not only daylight, but also light. And actually, a couple of my colleagues who work on this file are working very hard, meeting with members of the European Parliament to make sure that the definition of indoor environmental quality includes both the electrical lighting and the daylight element. And we're also trying to make sure that we keep the reference that we have to automatic lighting controls as a separate element. We're getting some resistance, I must tell you, from the building automation and controls industry who think that they can manage it for all building systems. We're trying to insist towards European Parliament members that it's important that it stays separate. We're also talking now to national ministries from across Europe to tell them what it is we want to see, to also encourage them to take this energy savings drive, but also make sure we go for quality lighting and quality environments. It's important that they agree with us, because for now, really the position of national ministries is to do as little as possible in this legislation. So where the Parliament has thousands of pages of proposals to amend the original draft, the Council, the member states, the ministries, they only have 3-4 pages, and it basically tries to reduce the target. So one day, the Parliament, the Council, the ministries will meet, and they will start negotiating as of next year. And what we want is that our amendments around quality environments stay in there and survive in the final text. And that will give all of us incentives to go to our different regulators across Europe, to go to different public authorities and encourage them not only to go for energy savings, but also to go for quality environments. We also have an upcoming restriction of conventional lighting technologies. One of them is already starting in February next year, culminating in particular in August, September next year. So that is an additional element that is accelerating the need for renovation and transitioning to alternative lighting. Now, the real challenge there is, how do we make sure that the market knows, and how do we make sure that the installers, the wholesalers, the dealers, all of these people also know and are preparing? Because what we really want effectively, and that was part of the challenge when we were trying to find a good timetable with the authorities on restricting and phasing out certain products, the challenge always was to find the right timetable so that people are aware and can put aside the time and the money to really plan for the next best thing and really make something good out of the spaces they have when they decide to transition. And then there's this, unfortunately, knee-jerk reaction that we see across Europe. Maybe you've seen it as well. That's a challenge we will need to address. Not everyone has money right now, or not everyone wants to prioritize and putting into renovating the lighting. So the often easy solution that you see in some countries is, let's just switch it off. We see that happening in France. We see that happening in Belgium. The park where I live, where I work, and I live on the other side of that park, is dark every night, as the lights are simply not on, even though it's one of the most busy parks normally in this city. So we still need to see this renovation and transition to LEDs and smart systems, controls, and all of that still needs to happen. But the education work is there. And I think if we spend a bit too much time in the dark, we might start missing better lighting. Hopefully we can convince people. Let's talk a bit more now about the sustainability policies that are coming up, and definitely the challenges, but also the opportunities that they will present. I think you can prepare yourselves, we are preparing ourselves in any case, for an avalanche of policies and rules all around sustainability, both of products and of companies. So we see new requirements on sustainable products they were published already in March, I believe, this year. In Lighting Europe, we were one of the first associations to already have some recommendations on how to fix this legislation. It basically creates a framework for all the possible sustainability requirements that we might apply to any product placed on the market. any product, not just electrical products, but anything from textile to cement to whatever. You have similar requirements coming up in construction products legislation, which has recently been proposed, and there we're trying to make sure that lighting is not part of that legislation. We can't be under both. It's just too confusing to the world to understand which rule applies. So we're trying to make sure that lighting is not part of construction products. We see new obligations expected to come out on the right to repair, on the obligations to use product and organizational footprinting methods to declare the impact of products or companies, and possibly mandatory third-party certification. These proposals have been, I think, postponed now for the second or third time, but we can expect those to come out as well. You see that we will have more requirements on substances, the dross, REACH, mercury, minamata, and also we're reviewing the waste legislation. So the whole framework we're used to is growing. It's becoming more complicated with more requirements, and it's becoming also more difficult to understand because there's many overlaps happening. Just to give you an example of what might be happening, you can expect to see over the next few years, we will have increasingly more obligations to be transparent about our products across the supply chain. Today we have the Apple database and the energy label. We have the SKIP database in Europe, which is about telling everybody publicly what substances of concern might be in your products. Soon we will have a new concept, what's the digital product passport. So this idea of a single QR code accessing all kinds of information about the product, the manufacturing process, be it the energy label, the substances information. It might even link to your own company website where you can put the user manual and instructions on how to repair. All these kinds of things are still being discussed and being proposed today. And there's also discussion about the repairability label or score. So prepare for a lot more transparency and a lot more comparison on different parameters among products by the customer. And the same applies to companies. We saw last week the publication of the corporate sustainability reporting obligations that start applying as of next year. So many companies have to start collecting information next year. In 2024 to report to 2025. We have also discussions, we're finalizing the last discussions on due diligence. We already have an EU green taxonomy, which basically is about classifying what companies, what products, what processes qualify as green and therefore qualify for public contracts or for financing. Now, the challenge is how do we manage all that information across our supply chains? What does that mean also for our internal systems? How do we structure that? And of course, as an industry, we need to find some consensus about how we interpret these rules and how we think they apply to which products and in what ways, in what energy classes, that kind of thing. On the opportunity side, it also means that all this work that definitely needs to be done will not be going to waste, because your customers and your investors will now be looking. Finance decisions, green public procurement decisions will be based on all these criteria. So whoever gets it done and gets it done right should be given priority. Some good news in all of this is that you'll be relieved, I hope, to know that there's one requirement we will not have to comply with. There was packaging legislation that was published last week, and we had seen a draft, I think earlier in the month of November, which included a maximum limit of 15% empty space ratio product to packaging for all electronics. And we thought, wow, if you try to do that in the shape of a lamp, round luminaire, it's never going to happen. We have to completely change and probably increase the amount of packaging we would use in lighting. And it was wonderful to see that in under 2-3 days, we had put together some examples from the experts in our membership. We had sent an email, I think, in the morning. I pressed send, and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we were having a conversation with EU officials explaining that this rule would probably not work. And thankfully, we have found that it is no longer in the final text that was published last week. So, lesson there is that regulators will listen and can be pragmatists. They want to find solutions that work. They're not out to make our lives super difficult. They're out to create an environment which really favors sustainability. And we need to be working with them to define what sustainability means for lighting and how we can deliver on it. Some last thought on my side, we're definitely living through a changing geopolitical landscape, and that is challenging to maneuver, but okay, with change, new opportunities will emerge, I'd like to think. First one is obviously the war in the Ukraine, which has probably shook us all, if nothing else, emotionally, but then also politically and economically. It means that it's impacted also our energy supplies and our thinking. It's really put an extra layer on all this drive to renovate and to go for more energy savings and to accelerate this green transition. But it also means that there's new coalitions forming and that existing relationships are changing. The old partners are now maybe looking for new friends, is the way I like to say it. One sign of that is this new Made in Europe speak that I hear from members of the European Commission, from EU authorities. I've been doing EU advocacy, as you've heard, for about 20 years. It's the first time I hear someone so publicly talking about we need to prioritize our independence in manufacturing in strategic industries and strategic centers. We need to promote more made in Europe and manufacturing in Europe. You see that happening in semiconductors with the EU Chips Act, with actually a lot of money going there and new fabs being planned, and one of them has started being built. We see that with batteries, the cornerstone of our future alternative energy infrastructure and mobility infrastructure. So we understand that we don't, as a continent, have access to all the raw materials we need in order to make new batteries. So we're building a closed loop system to recover and be able to remain independent and thereby be the engine, be able to facilitate our new electricity infrastructures and mobility infrastructures. And you see also, I see with interest, more indirect initiatives. For example, I was looking at the new proposals on photovoltaic and eco-design sustainability for photovoltaic, for PV panels. And I saw that there's really a strong push for reporting and carbon emissions, footprint of a product during the manufacturing phase and also during the transport phase. So it's an interesting way to think for someone like me, who, as you heard, I used to work for the semiconductor industry, so I arrived in time to see the European photovoltaic manufacturing industry basically disappear. It's interesting to see that even indirectly with these kinds of incentives, try to bring back manufacturing or certain sectors closer to home. And then, of course, it's interesting also to see that even old friends tends to get into trouble sometimes. Now the US Inflation Reduction Act is also creating a bit of pain here in Brussels. So they've decided to prioritize and basically give money for people to buy electric cars made in the USA. That's clearly not good news for Europe. They're also giving money to fab manufacturing, so fab building for semiconductor manufacturing. So it's good to know that the public authorities are prepared to give out more money and more support to incentivize manufacturing closer to home. But on the other hand, that also means that maybe markets globally will become a bit more restricted. And let's also hope that we will avoid a race to the bottom. And finally, the point that everybody makes, all of this legislation, all these policies, you must be an optimist, but they are complicated and they take time and energy. And that is absolutely true. That's something I hear about a lot. And actually, I have to tell you, I now hear about it from people I don't expect to. So on Monday, I was in a meeting organized by the European Commission, and it was basically, it had trade association representatives like from Lighting Europe. It had environmental NGOs, consumer organizations, and it also had market surveillance authorities. So the people who are in charge of actually inspecting products and checking that they comply with the EU rules. And I sat in this meeting and I was ready to make my usual speech and raise my usual concerns. And actually a market surveillance authority, a gentleman, took the floor and said, guys, we have a problem because legislation is increasingly complex and more, it is also growing in volume. Authorities, governments are not giving more resources to market surveillance authorities. That means that the proportion of the market that we are now checking is smaller. It means that the risk of getting caught is also getting smaller, and companies might know it. And it really means we need to be rethinking what we do and how we do it. And I have to tell you that there were a lot of innovative ideas coming out of that meeting, things like a new web crawlers and these kinds of, or more collaboration between authorities and trade associations in order to better police the market. So I just had to sit back and basically say, okay, I'm with him. Whatever he said is what I wanted to say as well. So I find it reassuring. I always think it's a good place to start the conversation when we all agree on the challenge and we all agree that we have a problem. Now what we need to do is find the right solution. But at least half of my job is done. I don't need to convince anybody of a problem. And I think we will come up with interesting solutions. Now, where does all this bring me? I guess it brings me back to where I started. It brings me back to my mother's garden and her lemon tree. That lemon tree has been there forever. It springs back to life every year, even though it, I think, cracked in two back in the early 2000s when there was heavy snow in Athens. It gives lemons every year, sometimes more, sometimes less. In plentiful years, I remember the house is full of bags of lemons because it's Greece. Everyone has a lemon tree. Nobody needs lemons. Nothing like the situation in Belgium where you look at the price and you want to cry, but it's a tree that perseveres. I look at the blue sky and the light and the colors, beautiful sky of Attica and the beautiful light of Attica. I remember, I'm reminded that I have the privilege to work for an organization that represents Europe's amazing world of lighting. And I tell you in the end, I believe it, that when life gives you lemons, you should just make lemonade. So all these challenges that are being thrown at us are also opportunities to change, to throw out new products, throw out new business models. And everybody's prepared to adapt because we're so used to everything changing lately that this flexibility has become innate and nobody asks questions anymore. So I take these changing, shifting times as an opportunity for us all. Thank you.
Orania, thank you very much for your lecture. Great lecture. And maybe we can take one question right after your presentation. There was this energy performance of buildings as a goal, as an important goal for improvements. And you mentioned there that lighting system design process will be included to improve. So what do you understand about this topic?
What we're trying to say basically is to educate people that you need design. Okay, so lighting, good lighting doesn't just happen. It's not something that happens at the end of the project. You should, when you talk about renovation, when you think about changing your building, also have a design for the lighting from the very start. You should make sure that design is followed. You should have inspection at the end of the works of the building, and then you should have regular maintenance. So we're trying to introduce this concept of don't just do it at the end, but put thoughts, energy, allocate resources to it from the very start and check along the way during construction when it's done, and then regular during maintenance that everything is still going according to plan or might need to be improved. And that is really something that does not exist for lighting in the thinking of regulators, and in practice sometimes we find, unfortunately, as well. So we're really trying to stimulate that thinking already in this framework for buildings.
Thank you, Orania. So thanks again for your talk. We will join then, you will join later for the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So our next keynote speaker is Alexander Nastov. Alexander, hello, nice to meet you. Alexander is Senior Manager at Samsung Semiconductor Europe LED. He is leading the introduction of products and the development of new business opportunities, especially with new and industry-leading technologies. Samsung LED entered into a large number of new application areas, therefore. And Alexander, we are looking forward to your talk, Outdoor Lighting, Saving Potentials with Latest LED Technologies. So the stage is yours, Alexander.
Right. There we go. So first of all, Mr. Luger, thank you for having us. It's really a pleasure and an honor. And today I want to speak about outdoor lighting, maybe a little bit more down to earth compared to other speeches today. So let's go, or let's not say down to earth, but rather deep dive into core technology from lighting and lighting components. As you said, I'm working for Samsung Semiconductors, so we want to look into the outdoor market and into saving potential exactly from where our competencies are, and that's the component level, and see what we can do there for the next years. So when we look in general into the outdoor market, or let's say just taking the street lighting market out of the outdoor market, we see that this year we look at about 32 million light points fixtures being exchanged, being built up and sold, which is approximately $3.5 billion. If you took a statistics from 2019, this number this year should have been a lot higher. We all know what happened between 2019 and today. On the other hand, this statistics is coming from early 2022. As we all know, 2022 also has changed a lot. Outlooks towards the next years have changed in the beginning of year. So at this stage, I want to show the numbers, show the expectations we all had, or we saw so far, but also put and raise a big question mark here, because we look at a completely different changed world at the end of 2022 compared to the beginning of 2022. We see construction costs, energy costs, but also public debts being or rising incrementally, and especially budgets, especially public budgets, also being reallocated. This is actually also a good reason to look into new potential in terms of not only energy saving, because we all know that also the environment is a bigger and more challenging topic than ever before, but also in terms of cost saving for infrastructure installations. Now, when we look into street lighting or into the outdoor market from a very, very deep dive component level, we see three core technologies that we are using as of today. The most traditional here is on the very left side. It's ceramic packages. In this case, you see a 35-35 package because of the form factor, but it doesn't really matter what is the form factor. It is the architecture of the product which makes it the most traditional and the most used package technology for outdoor markets. We'll get more into details there. The next package you see is the chip scale package. You see the approximate sizes here. They are relatively correct to each other. So you see that basically the chip size is comparable to the one from ceramic packages, but we just take out everything else. So there is no ceramic base, there is no lens, no dome on top. So it is, as the name says, the chip itself that is carrying the whole package. It comes with its own advantages of size. And then on the right side, the epoxy mold compounds, or called or short EMC. This is a, let's say, grown-up mid-power technology into high power. That's what we have seen in the last 10 years, that LED technology being more and more efficient, becoming more and more efficient, becoming more and more robust and stable. So we can use technology which was formerly implemented for lower reliability applications or lower flux applications, growing into more advanced applications with more output, with more requests to reliability, such as, for example, outdoor, and there especially street lighting, tunnel lighting. So, but we'll get more into that. Just to give you a visual overview of the technology we're going to compare here. And again, As I mentioned, we're looking into this matter from component side. Of course, there's a lot more to look into it from a broader level, from a module, from a fixture level, and further down the road. But as I said, everybody at their own competencies. So looking into the three technology options that we have and comparing them with a few KPIs here. So on the left side, you will see the spider chart where we've put a few KPIs that are required to look at when we speak about outdoor applications. Among the most leading ones, the focus lied on so far, or it actually still does, is lifespan and reliability, since when we speak about outdoor applications, we don't want to replace them every second or third year. Usually we have lifespans from 10 or more years, or let's say replacement rates for fixtures. So you can see that lifespan reliability, a very important topic here. Lumen per area is insofar an important topic. First of all, the size of a fixture. So it's not only the LED component, it's also the whole material besides that that you're using, which is also adding cost on one hand. On the other hand, we have seen that architectural, or let's say architecturally pleasing design is also an important factor. And the smaller a component, the more integration can happen, the more advanced designs can evolve. But then, last but not least, we have to talk, well, environment and money, or maybe at the end we can actually break down both of them to money as well. So we speak about efficacy, lumen per watt being an important factor, especially now when we look at energy costs rising, and of course lumen per dollar. Yeah, when we think about the charts I showed before, also in terms of potential in the world and the fixtures that are planned for this and the upcoming years, so being 32 million fixtures this year, question marks on all the forecasts for next year's, the lumen per dollar for the installation will become a very important question here. Also looking outside of Central Europe, looking into the rest of Europe, Southeast and East Europe, but also Latin America, Asia, and the African countries, where maybe the focus on each of these KPIs might be shifting and leaning towards well, KPIs like lumen per dollar rather than liability topics. Nonetheless, what I want to speak here about is actually the new potential. So this is a status quo that we see here, maybe just a recap. But now the new potential that we see is actually the latest changes or developments that we have seen to LED technology at EMC level. So as I said, a lot of applications have been moving towards technology that has been used for lower reliability applications, and now being able to cover advanced applications as well. And that's happening here as well. With new EMC packages that are coming up, we see a improvement, especially in the minor, or let's say in the KPI factors. You see here on the left side, the topics lifespan and reliability, which weren't too well covered with EMC technology. And that's exactly where we've seen huge improvements within the last year, coming up with new processes involved in the production technology of packages. Now, let's move again into a quick overview of the single technologies. So I want to attach words to technology one-on-one. So when we speak about ceramic packages, we speak about reliability. We speak about proven technology where we do have experience, where we have all passed through the learning curves, and we do know behavior of the packages at different conditions. We know the lifetime data. We have long lifetime tests at hand. We have tests for environmental conditions at hand, and we have also tests for robustness that are proving the reliability. So we can say the whole structure of the package is designed for a long-lasting experience or usage. So lifetime values, L90 values, way above 100,000 hours. Due to the architecture of the whole package itself, the chip, the bonding, besides LM80 data, also thermal cycling data is a important topic here. We'll see that in one of the next slides. Sulfur resistance, also a topic in outdoor usage. There we see either the usage of materials like gold or titanium dioxide coating, which leads to sulfur resistance close to 100% with the standard testings for lighting components. With temperature cycling, we show that the ceramic-based plating is actually the superior plating to ensure that the components last through the extensive tests for a long lifetime outdoor usage, and to simulate not only the switching cycles every day, but also temperature cyclings. Imagine you have outdoor lighting somewhere up in Norway or somewhere in the Emirates. You will have huge or possibly huge temperature shifts that can have an impact on the materials. So the ceramic plating, but also the chip bonding will give you an improved reliability here. So moving over to the chip scale packages, there I want to use the word compact. So whenever it's a design related matter and you need compact components, that is a chip scale package. Besides being compact, also sulfur resistance is given. Let me move over to this slide. So sulfur resistance is given by default, as we do not use any silver lead frame inside. So you see from the right to the left as I speak, design flexibility, compactness, sulfur resistance. We have the lifetime quality of mostly flip chip technology in chip scale packages used, similar to most of the ceramic packages, and also efficacy levels similar to the ceramic packages. Now moving over to the core of this this information block, and here I actually have the two words, cost and efficacy. Cost and efficacy are bound to technologies like mid-power packages, EMC packages, which are now also gaining a better access to outdoor applications. So we saw already the so far the lumen per dollar value because of the used materials. We also see the lumen efficacy because of the architecture of the chip inside, which provides a better efficacy level compared to a single bigger chip, which is used, for example, in ceramic packages. And now, speaking about the newest developments, new coatings, we can actually move quickly to this slide. So what we see here with the new developments, new coatings inside of the chip, you can see a little chart, let me show here, that showcases different types of coatings being used as a differentiation, not necessarily saying that it always has to be the highest coating. It depends always on on the necessity in the field, the requirements, the specification that need to be fulfilled, and last but not least, the lifetime. Lifetime being a strong topic not only of the chip design, the bonding itself, but also the material. So we say it's EMC material, like we also have other mid-power packaging materials, like a PCT material, but it's not one single type of material. So also here, material science is evolving, constantly improving. And what we see here is that newest materials in combination with chip technology that is being applied actually manage to more than double the lifetime expectation and reach L90 values above 100,000 hours, which is a core game changer of using EMC packages in outdoor technology and outdoor applications, also in markets like in Central Europe. When we speak about EMC packages, the pictures you saw, there were mostly 50-50 packages. Of course, we don't only speak about 50-50 packages, just to give you examples here. It can be 30-30 packages. It can be also 70-70 packages. And actually, the core information here is independent of the form factor. But as we have the most experience here at 50-50 packages for outdoor usage, I will want to remain there. 30-30 packages have seen already quite some usage, especially in lower lighting outdoor applications like pedestrian areas, for architectural integration to residential streets. But now the 50-50 packages become an interesting game changer when it comes to higher output outdoor applications like in roads, like in tunnels, bike paths, or floodlights as well. I mentioned a few improvements. Now let's start with the topic about sulfurization, which is an important factor also for outdoor industry and also outdoor. So what is happening in sulfurization? Sulfur or air with H2S is actually surrounding the LED. It is going into the silicon of the LED package, so there is no way to protect, there is a way to protect, but there is no way to stop sulfur from going into the structure of the silicon and then reaching through that actually the silver. We see the reaction with sulfurous silver, so Ag2S, which is giving us a dark tarnish on dark layer of the silver, instantly reducing, and by instantly I mean within several hundred hours, you will see a reduction of the reflectivity, and by that the efficacy goes down, the lumen output goes down, usually by about 20 to 30%. Sulfur is present. It is present in industrial processes. For example, industry that is related to, let's say, anything earth-related, petroleum and natural gas, but also industry that is related to rubber or sewage and waste treatment. But we also see sulfur still in outdoor, or on the street, and in tunnel being present, especially due to exhausts of cars. Now, there is a way to protect the structure. We see different mechanisms, but for EMC packages, the most common mechanism to protect a package is protection layers, to put them into the packages. You see the light red line around the package here on the right side, which symbolizes the thin layering that we are applying inside of a package to protect. And as you saw before on the chart, there are different ways. There are also different technologies to to put this layering inside of the package. And especially here, I want to speak about new protection levels. So in this case, we speak about the ceramic degree protection level inside of the EMC package. So it's not only silicon dioxide, there's also titanium dioxide and aluminum oxide inside in that package, protecting the LED on a level of a conventional ceramic package without having the base of a ceramic package itself, and hence also not the cost related level. Now we did test several 50-50 packages here. It's not about showcasing which company or which exact LED product also from our side is included in there. It's more about the industrial or let's say the technological comparison. We took tests for again salt fog protection, sulfur protection, and humid conditions, which are usually a very let's say harsh condition for LEDs and can cause a lot of lumen maintenance to go down. Now looking into salt protection, we see that 50-50 packages almost throughout the line are on a very similar level like ceramic packages. Always on the left side you will see the ceramic package. There might be one or the other moving up or down a little bit, but we all we see all there that we actually reach level of 95% lumen maintenance in salty air conditions. Now looking into the sulfurization, and you can already see the picture here, a tunnel being among the most demanding street lighting application where sulfur is a topic. And here you can see for different 50-50 packages, different layers of or the different ways of layering technology. You can see the 97% on the right side, which is the triple coating. You can see single coatings on the left side, and you see LED packages without coating with around 80% of lumen maintenance with the standard anti-sulfurization tests. You can see the comparison on the left side. That is a 30-30, sorry, the 35-35 package, which is a ceramic package here, which is usually going to be at a level of close to 100%. Again, here to express the differentiation. So, of course, there is the question, or the question remains, what kind of level of protection you need and with what kind of application. But now, with newest packaging and especially layering technologies for the protection, we are able to actually break through that wall of 90% performance on sulfur and reach levels of ceramic packages. Humidity, also mentioned before, usually done with WH2L test, or the proof of concept here done with WH2L test or WH2L test. There we can see that also 50-50 packages to perform on similar levels like ceramic packages, lumen maintenance remaining at areas of 100% at the standard WH2L test for 1000 hours. Now let's get to the point where we actually speak about what is the saving potential, and looking into a simulation that we have done comparing different packages. So we're comparing 35-35 packages or ceramic packages in general, chip scale packages on the right, and 30-30 and 50-50 packages, so EMC packages on the left. Now for this comparison, we're using a fixed let's say output and efficacy target. Therefore, you will see at an output target between 10,000 and 11,000 lumen. This is definitely a flux level which is speaking more for higher power than for the 3030 packages, also looking at the area. But then also we fixed the 180 to 182 lumen per watts, just to start comparing the packaging costs. Of course, you will see that there is flexibility in the design. So in the end, the question is, what is the design going to target? Are you targeting to improve the cost position? Are you targeting to improve the efficacy position, which in the end is also a calculation of the total costs of ownership? Still, at some point, the simulation needs to be fixed, and that's what we do with the lumen and the efficacy. And when we do that, you can see, especially comparing the 3535 packages at about 10,500 lumen with typical efficacies for 740 CCTs, we will use about 24 pieces, and we reach about 182 lumen per watts. In this case, the whole comparison for all packages is based on 25 degrees. Of course, this will looks like the numbers would look different if we change certain conditions, but it will still show the same results in relative comparison. Looking into 50/50 packages, and that's then where actually the biggest cost saving is coming from. We are reducing the component amount from 24 into 14 components. So not only the structure itself, the product is providing a better cost position because of the materials being used, but it also you can also use the efficacy level that is coming with the package to significantly reduce the component amount, and in the end we will reach areas of about 50% of saved material costs on component level here, which is a strong, or let's say a game changer actually in terms of cost savings, now that hygienic factors have been solved. So we speak again about the two most problematic topics that were part of the 50/50, or let's say of the EMC packaging technology. So protection, reliability, such as anti-sulfurization, always had been the disadvantage for that technology, and lifetime usually was the disadvantage and the showstopper when it came to using such component technology in street lighting. Now, with those having been tackled, the potential of cost and performance can be actually used, which were there for the whole time already. Yeah, in the end, I want to just highlight this slide one more time, also explaining here that, as you can see, the lines do not overlap completely. So of course, every technology still has its right to exist. Not every reliability topic, not every specification will be met, even with new EMC materials and packages. So there is still a lot of room to define the usage of where to put ceramic packages, as I mentioned, also where to put chip scale packages, for example, design-oriented fixtures, but also to understand what is now the potential that has been opened up for the big brother of mid-power technology. So the EMC high power packages that can be a game changer now, also in global areas like Central Europe. So thank you for your time. And I'm handing over back.
Thank you very much, Alexander, for your interesting presentation. I would just take over one question from the audience. That's from Juan Sanchez, and he asked about the color shift over time considerations for the different LED packages. What's about color shift over time?
Well, we do have measurement, we do have LM80 data that is also including the color shifts over time, also in dependency of current and temperature. So those can be actually proven for ceramic packages and also for EMC packages, which are very comparable actually. But again, we will need to look into the details, but data is available. So,
but your expectation
for us on general level, data of 17,000 hours at least is available, which gives you calculations of about 100,000 hours possibilities and projections also for the color shifts.
Yeah, but your expectations are that there are no big differences between the shown packages, right?
We are expecting that, yes.
Okay. Great. Again, Alexander, thank you for your lecture. Coming back then to the panel discussion. And that brings us to our next keynote speaker. And that's, and welcome, it's an honor to welcome Dr. René Weg. He is, hello, René.
Hello.
He is a topic leader in the field of solid-state lighting sources at Signify, formerly Philips Lighting. In that role, he is overviewing the field and driving innovations on solid-state lighting sources. He has a 15-year track record on development of spectral engineering innovations at Philips Lighting Signify, ranging from various remote phosphor platforms in the early days to high CRI and human-centric lighting spectral solutions in recent years. He holds a PhD in chemistry from Utrecht University on the topic of luminescent spectroscopy of lanthanide-based phosphor materials. He joined Philips in 1999, starting at the corporate research lab where he worked on various topics, including color filters for LCDs and light-emitting electromechanic cells for lighting, before moving to Philips Lighting in 2006. So René, it's a pleasure and honor to have you here for your lecture, Outdoor Lighting, Melanopic Lighting Systems. So René, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. So I hope you can see my screen. So thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much, Sigrid, for the nice introduction, and also thank you for the opportunity to give this presentation at this conference. So my name is René Weg. I'm working at Signify Research in Eindhoven, and I'm going to present part of the work that we're doing on human-centric lighting at Signify, and in more particular on melanopic lighting. So I'm going to explain a little bit more what melanopic lighting is, how much we need. I'm going to present the products that we have launched on the market. I'm going to go a little bit deeper in if further optimization is possible. And finally, I also will compare various melanopic light sources on the market. So light is as fundamental to life as food, water, and air. And it is well known that light has a profound effect on people's health and well-being. And there are actually three different types of aspects to that. There's the visual aspect. Light can make you see well. There is an emotional aspect. Light can make you feel well. And there's also a biological aspect. Light can make you perform well. And what we mean here is that light can have a direct impact, a direct influence on biological processes in the human body. And this last one is actually the focus of my talk today. So the most well-known influence that light has on a biological process in the body is that it regulates our circadian rhythm, our sleep-wake rhythm. Light wakes us up in the morning. The absence of light makes us fall asleep. So it is important that in the evening we have no light or less light so that we sleep well. But also daytime light has a very important influence. It helps us also with a good sleep and a happy mood and a better daytime functioning. And there's plenty of literature. In literature, there's plenty of evidence showing these processes. So it's also well known how this works, this influencing, how light influences the circadian rhythm. It goes via the non-visual pathway. We have the visual pathway, which makes us see. And there is the non-visual pathway where light is absorbed by photoreceptors in the eye. And then a signal is sent to our central body clock. So light is a so-called Zeitgeber for our central body clock. Actually, what it does is this signal that is sent from these photoreceptors steers the production of the sleep hormone melatonin. So during the day, when light is available, the production of melatonin is suppressed, and when light is absent in the night, then this melatonin is produced, and it makes us sleepy and fall asleep. So it's a very important influence, actually the most important factor influencing our circadian rhythm. Now, we spend more than 90% of our time indoors, but luckily also indoor daytime light can function as a Zeitgeber, provided that we provide the right light. It has to meet certain conditions, and we call that melanopic lighting. And these conditions or these factors, the main factors that are influencing this are given here. What is important is the timing of the light. So it is important to have light in the morning. The intensity of the light, the more light, the better. And also the spectrum is of importance. And that has to do with the fact that these photoreceptors have a certain spectral sensitivity, which is given here. And they actually peak in the cyan part of the spectral region at 480 nanometer. So therefore, it makes sense to influence the spectrum, to tune the spectrum such that there is more cyan light in it. So how to quantify melanopic light has been defined by the CIE in 2018. And there are two most important parameters there. One is the melanopic daylight efficacy ratio, in short, melanopic DER. And that is a parameter that relates the biological effectiveness of a spectrum, light spectrum, to the biological effectiveness of daylight, D65. So it's a relative parameter. It does not have a unit. It depends on the spectrum only. And it can be defined for any spectrum. And the second parameter is an absolute parameter. It is the melanopic equivalent daylight illuminance, melanopic EDI. And that is like a regular illuminance as expressed in lux, but it's kind of the melanopic illuminance. And therefore it's weighted using the melanopic DER. It is based on the amount of light falling on the eye, because that is the relevant direction over here, as indicated in this pictogram. And it is defined as follows. It is the product of the vertical photopic illuminance falling on the eye times the melanopic DER. So then the next question is, how much would you need of this? How much melanopic light do you need? What are the recommended melanopic EDI levels to prevent biological discomfort? We know that in our indoor environments, we are actually at light levels which are orders of magnitude lower than what we experience outdoors. So therefore, we can call that like indoors, we are in biological darkness. If you look at, for example, standard office lighting in Europe, where the norm is 500 lux on the desk, so that is downwards, that would translate to typical melanopic EDI of 125 lux on the eye. Is that enough? Well, the answer is no. The most important scientists in the field of circadian rhythm came together recently in order to define proposals for recommended indoor light levels. And they did that by collecting all data of evidence available in literature. So all kinds of studies have been done where various amounts of light and melanopic EDI have been exposed to people, and various responses have been measured. These different colors are different types of responses. And the scientists have put all these data together and found that you can see there is a clear trend in it, this S-curve. And based on that, they could also define a proposal for a minimum melanopic EDI for daytime, and that is 250 lux, this level. And that is a minimum. More is always better, but at least it, and you already see that this minimum is twice the amount that we have normal in our offices today. So that's really, really a big difference. Another way of looking at it is looking at health and well-being building certifications, which are coming up more and more. The one that's probably most well-known is the one by WELL. That is the International Well Building Institute. That is an organization that awards certificates to a building when that building or building owner fulfills a number of requirements. Part of these requirements relate to lighting, and part of that relates to circadian lighting. And then two situations have been defined. In case there is no daylight at all coming into the office, and if you then want to gain 3 well points, you need to provide a melanopic EDI of 250 lux with the artificial light. And in the case there is daylight falling in the office, then it doesn't have to be that much, but for 3 points still, the melanopic EDI needs to be 163 lux, which is still significantly higher than what we normally have in our office. So how can you reach that? Well, you could, of course, you could increase the melanopic EDI just by increasing the lux levels indoor. But you might run then into glare issues. It might not be possible in many cases. And moreover, it is not the most energy efficient way of doing it, as I will show later. And therefore, we at Signify have developed and released special melanopic light sources with an adapted spectrum. By the way, there are more cases on the market. But what we have done is that we go from a traditional spectrum, which you see here. The white trace is a regular standard spectrum at 4000 Kelvin, CRI 80, and where you see that there is a gap actually in the cyan part of the region at 480 nanometer. That we change to a cyan boost. So we change the spectrum and add a lot of cyan intensity, as you can see over here. And we call that bio-up technology. And we have released 2 types of products, which I want to explain to you. So the first one is bio-up CES. That stands for Cyan Enhanced Static. And that is a light source with enhanced circadian stimulation at a fixed color temperature, 4000 Kelvin, standard color temperature. And the benefits are that melanopic stimulation, it gives you melanopic stimulation close to that of the spectrum of daylight, but then at a neutral white CCT. And it is the easiest and most energy efficient way to reach melanopic EDI of 163 lux, the number that you need for 3 well points if you have daylight, and an additional well point for an R9 above 50. And the reason that this is the most easy way is that it is actually just a drop-in replacement for currently used fixed white light sources. We have these boards, these level 2s, and you actually would just need to replace current light sources by this one. And that will bring you from a melanopic EDI of about 125 to about 163 lux. and you don't have to do anything else. You don't need to increase the light level. And that is because of the higher melanopic DER. Also, then you don't need controls because it's a fixed white solution, single channel. And the key performance specifications are CRI above 80, of course, the R9 above 50. And this melanopic DER is in the order of 0.87. And that number you need to compare with then standard office light, which is kind of 0.66. So it's a really big step up. And it is close to the melanopic DER of daylight, D65, which is per definition 1. How do we do that? We actually combine two different types of LEDs, cyan LEDs and warm white LEDs. And if you combine these two in the proper ratio, then as you can see in this color diagram, you end up at the target color point that we want to reach, 4000 Kelvin white, with the proper spectrum and the proper color quality parameters. And this black trace here is the total spectrum. And it's composed out of these two parts. And we have patented this technology. The second type of product is then different. It's BioUp CED. That stands for Cyan Enhanced Dynamic. So that is a light source with enhanced circadian stimulation at the tunable color temperature from warm white 2700 Kelvin to 5000 Kelvin. And the benefits here are that this is the solution with the highest melanopic stimulation. If you, for example, would need to get 3 well points and you don't have daylight, you need to go to this 250 lux, then you really need to go to the highest melanopic stimulation you can get. And therefore, you would, we think, have to go to also a cooler white light, because that gives you a higher melanopic DER. But then we propose to go to 5000 Kelvin. So this gives a melanopic stimulation equal to the spectrum of daylight, but at a still reasonable color temperature, not too cool. The other benefit is that since this is tunable, this melanopic stimulation can be switched off in the evening by going to warm white. The warm white light in this system has a low melanopic stimulation, no melanopic stimulation, you could say. You get an extra well point for R9 above 50 and also an extra well point for controllability. And this, in this case, is a drop-in replacement for current tunable white light sources. And also it gives a good color uniformity. So CRI is above 80 and R9 above 50 over the entire CCT range. And the melanopic DER is in this case really close to 1. And the way we've done it here is we are using only white LEDs. So as you can see in this picture, there are warm white LEDs, obviously, in the warm white channel, and there are cool white LEDs in the cool white channel, but those are two types, alternating. One is the normal cool white LED, and the other one is a special one. We call it CP. That stands for cyan phosphor. So it's an LED, a white LED, which consists of a cyan pump, cyan chip, and phosphor, some phosphor. And the color point is similar, same as the cool white LED. And in that way, you get good color uniformity. And by changing the ratio, changing the current between the two channels, you can change the color temperature. And at 5000 Kelvin, you reach the performance that we want. And yeah, we have different types of level 2 products. Strips, but also boards, square boards, and many more, both in the CES and the CED. And we're also working on implementing these into luminaires. So these are the products that we currently have. Then you might wonder, yeah, is there still anything to be done? Can we still make it better? And for that, we have done some theoretical simulations, looking at what is theoretically possible by doing simulations with Gaussian emitters, such that the total spectrum resembles practical white LED spectra. And we have in order to define the maximum melanopic DER you can reach per CCT. And these maximum melanopic DERs that we found are kind of plotted in this graph. What you see is that going to cooler white light, the maximum melanopic DER you can reach is higher. There's more blue in that spectrum, so that is logical. And what is also obvious here is that for a CRI maximum 70 or minimum 70, the maximum melanopic DER is higher than what you can reach for a CRI minimum 80, which is a little bit higher than what you can reach for a CRI 90. So this is what is maximal possible. And here now I've added the data points for many commercial sources. These commercial light sources are not optimized for melanopic light. So therefore, we do see that the melanopic DER is relatively low. Take a look, for example, at the CRI 80 category, the blue data points. They are much lower than what is maximum possible. I also plot here the products that we have launched. So those are optimized for melanopic lighting, but still, as you can see, the melanopic DER is not close to the maximum that you can reach. So it is possible to reach higher melanopic DER, but the question is, does that make sense? And for that, we actually think it's limited how much sense it makes, and that has to do with the fact you shouldn't look only at the melanopic DER, but you should also look at the LER, the luminous efficacy of radiation, which is a parameter that tells you the energy efficiency of generating your lumens, lumens per watt radiation. And it's important to look at that because the melanopic DER is actually a parameter which tells you how much melanopic light you can make per lumen of a spectrum. And it does not say anything about how energy efficient you can make that lumen. That is given by this LER. So therefore, what we do here is we plot melanopic DER, the maximum melanopic DER you can reach, against the LER of a wide spectrum. For one color temperature here, only 4000 Kelvin, CRI minimum 80. We did these theoretical simulations. We take all the white solutions at 4000 Kelvin, and here are the maximum MDER, melanopic DER values plotted as a function of LER. And what you see is that the highest melanopic DER is reached for a very low LER. So actually, that wide spectrum is very energy inefficient. So therefore, it's not enough to just look at melanopic DER, because we all know that energy efficiency is very important in these times. So therefore, actually, we propose to optimize on the product of melanopic efficiency of melanopic DER and LER. And you could call that a melanopic efficiency of radiation. It tells you how much melanopic light you produce, a light source produces per watt radiation. And that directly translates to energy efficiency. So here, the same data are plotted, or the same data are given, but it's here the product of LER times melanopic DER, the maximum you can reach as a function of LER. And you can see that the maximum of that is located somewhere here. So not for the maximum melanopic DER point, but differently. And we think you should optimize on that. So if I now plot the practical spectra, the commercial spectra in here, what I have done here is I have plotted spectra of commercial melanopic sources. So only sources that have been optimized for high melanopic light from different vendors. Those are the orange ones, and this yellow one is our CES solution. And so what you see here is that our CES solution in the product of LER times melanopic DER is quite close to the theoretical maximum. There's a 3% gap. In other words, there's still 3% to gain. And our solution is at least 5% higher than other high melanopic light sources that we could find on the market. And also, it is much higher than the product of melanopic EDR times LER of a standard light source, which is this data point over here. It's more than 15% difference. It means that if you want to make melanopic light, using a CES product is more than 15% more energy efficient than when you would want to make the same amount of melanopic light with a standard 840 spectrum. So in summary, light is the most powerful regulator of our circadian rhythm, especially cyan light. We have developed melanopic lighting systems with cyan enhanced spectra, which have outstanding performance because we have developed special LEDs for that. And this actually gives so this cyan enhanced spectra is the most energy efficient way to generate melanopic light. And finally, I would like to acknowledge some of my colleagues who have contributed significantly to this work. I would like to point out that if you would like to know more about this topic, there is a white paper that you can find now via this link on the internet on melanopic light. And I would like to thank you for listening.
Rene, thank you very much. That's a fantastic work you did, showcasing, so to say, the maximum could be achieved for light sources. So to which kind of applications are these products planned?
The products that I now have shown, these products are meant for daytime indoor lighting. Let that be clear. So in evening light, of course, you need to go for low melanopic stimulation. So this is for light to be used during daytime. Mm-hmm. And mainly here we are targeting, at least currently, professional applications then, office, but it can also, of course, be healthcare, industry, education. You could use it all there.
Okay, super. There are more questions came up. We will cover that during the panel discussions. So far, thank you very much, Rene.
Welcome.
That brings us to the fourth keynote speaker, and it's also a pleasure to welcome from the United States, Dr. Robert F. Karliczek. He is professor of electrical, computer, and system engineering and the director of the Center for Lighting-Enabled Systems and Applications and co-director of the Institute for Energy and Built Environment and Smart Systems, both at the Rensselaer Polytech Institute. Prior that work, he spent over 30 years in industrial research and R&D management positions related to optoelectronics, telecommunications, and lighting system development, with cooperation including AT&T Bell Labs and General Electric. He has obtained his PhD in physical chemistry from the University of Pittsburgh and has over 56 peer-reviewed technical papers and 48 US patents. Bob, it's a pleasure to welcome you here at LpS Digital 22. The stage is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Siegfried. And it's a great opportunity to talk a little bit about our work here at our center at RPI. And I'd like to thank the organizers of the LpS Digital Summit for inviting me to talk. I'm going to maybe look a little bit further out in the future where some of the technologies involved in light emitting diodes and sensing and control systems may be going, because I think we're going to be designing more complicated lighting systems where we need to control spectrum on a time basis. We're going to need to control density and putting it where we need it. And we wanted to see what we could do to take a look at making lighting much smarter. So I'm going to talk about, first of all, why current smart lighting systems, from our perspective, aren't really that smart. And then I'd like to propose that we need to start taking a look at what we mean by autonomous lighting control as an approach to get to the right light where and when it is needed. Talk about some of the continued development strategies to realize truly autonomous lighting, and kind of go from there. So what we see here is basically a very simple observation. We teach all of our engineering students that systems can't control what they cannot measure, and smart lighting systems need data. And they have very, very little data about where their light is going and what they're seeing. Yes, they can be controlled by certain sensor systems like IR motion detectors or thermal array sensors, ultrasonic sensors, a little bit of ambient light sensors for controlling daylight and light intensity from LED lighting fixtures, and now even RF sensors that can detect occupancy. But those sensing systems don't really work that well and provide real data on knowing where the occupants are in an occupied space. We don't know where to put the light, and we don't know what people are doing, which is the second thing we need to understand. We need to understand what people are doing. Are they reading a book? Are they involved in pleasant conversation, business meeting, listening to a lecture? How can we tailor the light autonomously to be able to make sure the right light is always present for different kinds of things? And as I said already, the lighting system should probably be autonomous, because modern lighting systems have the potential to become too hard for mere mortals to control. So this is the context in which we took a look at trying to realize what you see on this slide. Imagine a conference room where you're present in the daytime, somebody's giving a lecture, and you have plenty of daylight and properly placed light emitting diode lighting in the panels that are shown in the ceiling. And then you go to an evening situation where people are there reading along the outside wall, and somebody's looking at artwork on the wall, and the lighting can be completely controlled to provide the right light where and when you need it. No one's at the table, you can have reduced lighting levels there. So this is what we'd like to be able to see. And I'll point out one thing here, that if you take a look at the color of the troughers in the ceiling, on the left side, you see they're kind of bluish. They actually wouldn't look like this in practice, but it highlights an interesting technology that I want to describe a little bit more as we go to the next slide, and that is, how can I put more blue light in the vertical plane for illuminance into people's eyes, and more appropriate light onto horizontal surfaces when I don't really need the melanopic lux, as was talked about by Renee in the last presentation. So this is the kind of thing we want to see. Can I build a system that can tell where the people are and put the light where it's needed autonomously? Now, historically, lighting control systems have been pretty limited, but more importantly, they all require the involvement of a human interface. We've got on-off dim, of course. We have remote control, which is becoming very popular nowadays with BLE or Wi-Fi. If you want to do color tuning, you can easily download a color tunable app to be able to select the color temperature, presuming that you know what your melanopic lux needs to be for that particular point in time today in the day, or whether you're trying to phase shift circadian rhythm after international travel, for example. How would you know this? You can add voice control to lighting. People are talking about doing that, but the problem is most people are not lighting designers. It's not part of our language for people to be able to say, I want 5,000 Kelvin at 500 lux from my lighting fixture today. They don't know what a Kelvin is. They don't really understand what a lumen is, and it's not part of our lexicon. So humans don't even know how to talk to a lighting system in order to necessarily get what they need to have to be able to have the right light when they need it. So the question is, how can we kind of address that? And that was the philosophy that we took to the United States Department of Energy when we proposed a program to take a look at spatial control of lighting combined with occupancy awareness, where we look at location, pose, gaze direction, and activity estimation with novel control algorithms to provide the right light where and when we need it. And so what you see in the top bar is the creation of a spectral power distribution selectable, spatially directable luminaire development program, combined with precision occupancy sensing, so we can tell where people are and where estimate what they're doing essentially, and then provide a control algorithm for what I'll call pleasant light control. And this DOE program is titled Spatially Adaptive Tunable Lighting Control System with Expanded Wellness and Energy Saving Benefits. Of course, the title is always pretty impressive and maybe a little bit too long. The question is, how can we get energy efficient light where and when we need it? So our approach was simply to pose some requirements: 0 to 1000 lux, color temperature range of 2200 to 6000 Kelvin. We wanted to be able to do spot lighting to diffuse controllable lighting, very smooth adaptation so it didn't look jagged or somewhat, one of our research scientists calls it spastic, as the lighting would adapt to where people were and how they moved, and also to take a look at glare minimization. So we could use the spatially controlled luminaire to minimize the light that would shine directly into people's eyes and cause problems with glare. So you see it's really composed of 3 parts: a steerable fixture specification, an occupant detection system, number 2, and number 3, basically simulation feedback control to a lighting controller that would allow us to put the light where it's needed based on what the people are doing and where they are positioned within the space. So this is clearly an ambitious program, but the question is, can we really take the human out of the lighting control loop to give them the light that they need by building the intelligence into the lighting system as being kind of a goal? Because as I said previously, I fear that as we come up with color tuning and lighting design and spatial distribution of lighting capabilities in modern LED fixtures, we're going to exceed the ability of people to always get what they need from the lighting system. So first, let's talk about the steerable lighting design. And this involves some rather interesting LED dye technology. This is really being driven by our partners in the program at LpS. If we start off with 3 rather large LED dye, each of which contains 49 addressable pixels. There's one phosphor converted blue LED dye, phosphor converted green LED dye, and a phosphor converted red LED dye, shown underneath a lens array. Now, what you see in the top bar is the concept. We build this pixelated light source, and by addressing different pixels placed underneath a lens, we can direct the light in different directions. The board that has been designed by LumenLEDs is shown in the middle top bar, showing the 3 different phosphor converted LEDs that are there. Those black squares are mini LED BLU drivers. They've got more than enough capacity to control the complexity of these pixelated light emitting diode arrays. And then finally, you see over on the right-hand side, you can actually address the individual pixels, for example, to create a letter or something else. That's not what we'd actually do in steering the light, but that's where we'd want to go. We take that assembly of light emitting diodes, we mount it underneath a lens array, and then we can actually, for one RGB module in a small box where we showed that you can demonstrate how these pixels look, show only 2 pixels on simultaneously, getting 2 spots coming from the lens array in this particular space. Now, to build the troffer, and this is a design build which we've already tested, and we're now in the process of installing several of them in our conference room testbed space. We have a total of 36 of these individual RGB modules mounted in a diffuse waveguide panel, which is used to actually add additional light in side lobes that allow us to throw light into the vertical plane to create a fairly interesting luminaire that we can digitally tune spatially and spectrally, as well as, of course, intensity. So this is the digital steerable lighting system that we're really working with LumenLEDs to define and to build. Here's an example of the troffer shown on the left-hand side in a testbed space. This is at LumenLEDs, I believe, in Eindhoven. You can see that the lights were spinning around, but you didn't see that motion over in the, let's see if I can play this again. You didn't really see that motion shown in the light if you take a look at the light. It looks like a normal troffer. It's a normal 2x2 type of lighting fixture, and we could still basically show those spots spinning around. So obviously we don't want that kind of disco effect for a normal lighting system. So take a look at how we actually control the pictures on the pixels on the right-hand side. If you start with A, we have 4 chairs lit at about 2700 Kelvin. The table's lit at about 4000 Kelvin. Just arbitrary settings. We can change, and the little inset in A are the pixels on the chips that are being addressed to create this particular distribution. In B, it's the same as A, except we've only illuminated 3 chairs, the 3 chairs in the back of the scene. And you can see that the pixelation of the LED modules has been changed. And then C, we can illuminate the entire area relatively uniformly at 2700 Kelvin with the table at 4000 Kelvin. And now we've turned on the side lights to also flood the walls at about 2700 Kelvin. All these images are from the same fixture as shown in the left-hand side with the different digital pixels turned on to get the lighting distribution you would like to be able to have. Now, there are a lot of possibilities for being able to light up this fixture because I have a total of 49 pixels per color times 36, thousands of digital combinations in the fixture that can direct where light and color come out of the fixture. So I need to clearly have a control system that allows me to manage that. So let's talk a little bit about the occupancy sensing and what we're trying to do there. Now, I'm not proposing that we actually do this in normal lighting environments where we use a Microsoft Connect to image and find people and determine their pose and gaze. But shown over here is an image from Microsoft Connect where I can take an individual in a room and skeletonize it to be able to observe where they are and where they are looking. And what you see on the top is kind of how the Microsoft system does that. And shown in the image below the skeleton on the top is a layout of our conference room. There's a table in the middle of the conference room. You'll get a better look at the conference room arrangement in the next slide. And there's an individual walking down one side of the room, and we can tell where they're going, and we can tell where they're looking, and we can produce lighting for that particular individual if we couple that location and that activity back into the lighting control system. So what we do after we start getting this data for people in the test bed space, and we can add more people virtually or actually, is build an activity map and a light map table. So I can create, and I can actually use the system to recognize various activities, writing, somebody presenting at the blackboard, which is at the back side of the room, people just talking, having a business meeting, perhaps a party. These are all different things, and we can take a look at different features that we want to highlight at different lighting levels with different spectral content in different places. And we can build that kind of activity map. That's one approach to control, where we take a look at where people are in the room and estimate what they are doing. And then we take a look at our activity map and provide a lighting distribution. And as people move or as people leave, we can go from activity to activity and do what I call light sculpting. We put the light where it's needed, and we reduce the light intensity where it's not needed, so we can save energy. So this would be one approach. Another approach, which we are working on, is we just do it dynamically. We have a heuristic that allows us to estimate the activity based on people and their location within the room. And we basically just direct the light in real time using a more sophisticated control algorithm. We couple our simulations to radiance simulation of lighting design distribution in the test bed space. This work is being done by our architectural lighting design partner at HKS. We want to make sure that we feed accurate lighting levels into the control system. Right now, the control system is being developed in Unity, which is a gaming engine simulator that we use to create basically a digital twin of our test bed space. So we get target lux values, we have algorithm optimization, and then we basically have a simulated illuminance map. as we go across from left to right in this particular place. Each one of those dots is a sensor. So on the left, you're looking to target illumination of the blackboard with the red dots. And then you take a look at how you can actually optimize that algorithm to be able to put light where you want it. We also put some light on the table, assuming that a small number of people are sitting near the blackboard for a presentation. And we feed this back into the digital twin to take a look at how we would visualize that. So we've created a lot of these digital twin activity work. We've done a lot of the calibration now. Now we need to start moving to what the digital twin actually looks like. So here's the actual control program. You see the operator in Unity taking a look at the ability to dim or change lighting from luminaires. These are actual simulated LumaLEDs luminaires for different scenes. You can see that they are basically clicking on various scene bars at the left-hand side to simulate what the lighting system would look like. Right now, we're illuminating some artwork where a person happens to be looking. The control system will detect the location of real individuals and then use that location and gaze information to turn on the correct pixels, minimize glare, and provide proper illuminance. In the more autonomous fashion, where we don't necessarily predict an activity, we define a lighting bubble for each individual in the space. That lighting bubble is at a certain illuminance and spectral power distribution based on time of day, the spectrum that we anticipate that's required for an activity, and that lighting bubble gradually drops in illuminance as you move away from the person's head. And then these lighting bubbles can kind of move around the room as a person is there, with the distribution of light within the bubble changing depending upon the person's gaze. And so that's kind of what we're looking at with this particular system here. So that gives you an idea of what we're doing in simulation. You've seen a little bit what the system actually looks like, but now we're just in the process of building this test bed right now. We're not really quite there, but why autonomous? Well, as you heard, we want to basically save energy. That requires two things. That requires not wasting any light, and the control system can do that, so long as the control system doesn't add a lot of additional energy use. We'll talk about that in a second. Also, we don't want to add a lot of extra light just to hit equivalent melanopic lux that's required for human health and well-being. So we wanted to be able to control the spectral power distribution in the vertical planes and the horizontal planes individually. And we can do that with the spectrum control that's afforded by the LumaLED's light engine. And a side benefit of what we are doing is that when we know where people are and we estimate what they're doing, we can provide much more sophistication to building HVAC control systems to save really quite a bit of energy. And this work kind of came out of our another program that we have that involves the use of sensor systems for HVAC control in buildings. A little inset on the lower right-hand side is where we put 4 low-cost sensors in a building, and with these sensors, we can detect the count, occupancy count of people at each of the spaces in the place where a 0 is right now. I didn't download the video for that particular simulation to show what it looked like. But you can see in the table that's directly above there that depending upon some kind of lighting scenario, we can reduce energy consumption depending upon what part of the room is illuminated by up to about 75%. For example, when a room is only partially occupied, there's a cluster of people near one end of the room for a small meeting, and I can reduce the illuminance in the rest of the room based on the fact that it's not fully occupied. That would be kind of an ideal scenario. Now, it's very clear that if the room goes to nominally full capacity, then all the lights would be on and the energy savings would be reduced. So where can we kind of go from here? Well, before I kind of get there, I'd like to propose that one of the things we can do in the lighting community is take a look at developing a taxonomy for autonomous lighting control. I draw an analogy to the autonomous vehicles that people are talking about and the taxonomy that's been developed by a number of government agencies and taking the various levels of control that are there and how that technology will ramp over time. But an autonomous vehicle is basically a vehicle with an embedded expert driver. And so the question really becomes, how would we build a taxonomy? And there's a simple one listed below that would need a lot more work from lighting experts, including people that are on this call today, to take a look at how I could actually embed a lighting expert in the lighting control system. Lighting control systems have always been the bane of building managers. A lot of times they're hard to use. A lot of times they're difficult to keep calibrated. So the question is, how can we take it out of the human's hands and put it into the lighting system in an autonomous control system? And so we want to push that envelope and see how we can get there. So in this particular case, our biggest challenge is going to be cost down. We're not going to be installing Microsoft Kinects, our conference room where we're doing our simulation work right now, and where we're installing the LumaLEDs lights. That's in progress. Uses a total of 4 Microsoft Kinects for a room that would normally house 21 people at maximum capacity. We're not going to be doing that everywhere. Obviously, we need to come up with a sensor platform which is much lower cost. And so we're currently looking at whether or not we can use a Kinect system to train a network of very low cost sensors, like color sensors and indoor time of flight sensors, to really know how to recognize people. Where these sensors can be placed in the light fixtures. We're developing that, as I said, in another DOE program funded by ARPA-E, where we're doing reflected light field sensing for precision occupancy sensing and location detection, where we combine a time of flight sensor and a color sensor to figure out where people are and what they are doing. And these can be really low cost. So we would use machine learning, artificial intelligent methods to train the network so that it would be able to do this with low power consumption and with relatively low latency. We need to be able to drive the adoption of this kind of autonomous control with a stronger lighting quality value proposition. Circadian Manage could certainly be part of that, worker satisfaction. We visualized this lighting live, and we find that the lighting dynamics of moving the light around the room can be actually rather comfortable for the lighting, for the occupants in the room being illuminated by spatially steerable lighting. I've talked to a lot of lighting designers about this concept, and they thought that it would be strange that the lights should be moving without any moving parts, just light showing up in different directions at different times based on what people were doing. But that's not been our experience so far, just sitting in the room where the lighting fixture has been installed. So we're not going to just do this for lighting. This brings up maybe a sensitive question for the lighting community, and that is we need a much stronger integration to the smart building technologies. The real value proposition is how we can use occupancy sensing to not only automate lighting control, but automate many other things in the building, like makeup air, to be able to manage indoor air quality where it's controlled by where people are, and we're not conditioning air to be fed to where people aren't. And how can we do this? And how can we do this with high degree of accuracy and with high precision? So that's really where I think we're going to get the value proposition for built environments of the future. Lighting control on autonomous lighting systems will become part of a much bigger program, which what I would call autonomous building operations, where I know a number of companies are starting to take a look at how we get there. Some people talk about sentient buildings, for example. Yes, it sounds a little dystopian perhaps, but I think it can really provide advantages in terms of energy savings in building environments as a whole. So I'm going to summarize at this point because I've pretty much covered what I wanted to cover with this particular concept of autonomous lighting. Smart lighting clearly needs to see to know where to put the lighting. We just simply need better sensors. Just knowing that somebody is in a room using a PIR sensor or even an RF sensor because they happen to be tagged with a smart device is not going to allow me to do smart lighting. I need to know what's going on. The lighting system needs that information. In fact, the building needs that information. As we get to more and more complicated lighting systems with multiple spectral power distributions in the fixture, maybe different multiple fixtures to do spot lighting or diffuse lighting, or lighting up different parts of the room for different kinds of activities, whether it's in multiple fixtures or preferably in one spatially controllable fixture. Humans won't be able to control those kinds of systems. You're going to have to take the human out of the loop to get the right light at the right place at the right time. It's going to have to be a lighting designer that's embedded in the light fixture. I think improvements in sensor networks with embedded machine learning and artificial intelligence will drive down costs. Edge intelligence, or things like tiny machine learning, where the sensors actually have machine learning software built into the sensors themselves. This is a platform being developed by several sensor system companies right now, will allow me to avoid having to send a lot of data to a cloud location somewhere and allow me to make the control adjustments directly in the room where the autonomous lighting occurs. And as I said, additional energy savings will be driven primarily at the building systems level, where I tend to end up in the camp that says lighting control and building control are going to ultimately merge to be control. And they're not going to really be distinguishable as part of a holistic approach to driving energy costs out of building operations. So with that, let me thank my collaborators, particularly Dr. Sauer at Lumileds, who has led the Lumileds team development on the beam steerable lighting, Professor Alexandros Tsamas at the Center for Architectural Science and Ecology at RPI, my colleague in controls, Rich Radke at RPI in the Lighting Enabled Systems and Applications Center, and Tim Logan at HKS, who's driven a lot of our lighting simulation work. Of course, our students have made major contributions to this work. For those of you who come from academia, you know that the students actually do the work anyway, and the professors just try to supervise as best they can. And of course, our funding agencies, the National Science Foundation, the Department of Energy, and ARPA-E, which is also in the Department of Energy, but is a separate organization. And with that, I will end there. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present this perhaps a little bit more visionary work. But we will have an operational test bed with 8 functioning lights within the next 6 months. And if anybody happens to want to come to Troy, New York, I'd love to have you come by and see it. Thank you very much for your time.
Robert, that's an amazing investigation and research work. Thank you very much for your lecture and for your talk. Just one question raised up from the audience, which we could take from here, that's related to Peter Schwartz wrote, did you record and evaluate how occupants reacted emotionally to the continuously changing lighting scenarios according to their movement? Did they feel if the big brother following them 24/7?
So that's a really good question. And because we've only got one working light fixture right now where we've demonstrated the functional control capability, we're in the process of installing another 8 in our conference room. Well, where will we be doing the human factors testing? The only thing that I can rely on right now is virtual reality simulations, where we've had people in the simulated environment with a VR headset, basically giving some kind of their sense of what they felt the lighting control system felt like from their perspective. And that's why I made the comment that so far the people that have used the VR system with responsive spatially controllable lighting felt that it was actually comfortable to see that kind of lighting change. One of our deliverables to the Department of Energy is to actually do a more comprehensive human factors test to evaluate what the actual human perception is. And then hopefully over time determine whether or not this is just a matter of adaptation as people get used to this kind of a concept, because now the technology enables it.
Super. Thank you, Bob. I mean, you can already stay here because we just go to the next point of our agenda. That's the panel discussion. And I would like the other speakers to join this discussion, please. So René, Orania, and also Alexander. And in a first question, I would like to ask you all, we heard now different kinds how lighting could evolve, what kind of trends and improvements and innovations could be seen. I would like to ask you, did you recognize, let's say, some common sense, common lines of trends that lighting will follow? And I want to point out maybe what are the major trends you see for the next year? And maybe it's something you see here in common of the lectures we heard today. Who wants to start? Yes, Orania.
Happily take a first go at this. I was very intrigued to listen to the other presentations. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for sharing all that. And I'm somehow reassured because what I see is amazing technology that delivers better quality, that focuses on people, that manages material efficiency and savings in terms of actual energy use. I see questions in the chat about sustainability, but I also heard good things about how we're thinking about addressing that. The challenge I see moving forward is, Bob, you've left me with an open challenge, and that is, you say that the value proposition is, I think, where we're all stuck, right? You can be driven by the need for energy savings, but people need to be prepared to pay that extra dollar, euro, whatever it is, to go for the quality that we can all offer. And you said at the end that it is probably related to becoming more integrated with the buildings and on all other systems and creating those synergies that optimize the system, the smartness. And I'm intrigued by that because I think that's the biggest challenge, frankly, for our industry at this point, because it's not something we're ready for. Lighting is really good about talking about lighting. Let's be honest, it's super complicated. I am in no way a lighting expert. I learn every day, and it's really hard already as a human to go and choose the right light when you go to a shop. So even more so when you're doing that at system, at buildings level or cities and all of that. So we struggle, I think, with stepping out of our world, finding the right balance of what to give away to someone who's an outsider, what to keep for ourselves, and how to become part of a system that works well together without feeling that we're losing something of the value proposition. And when I talk to my colleagues in heating or cooling or ventilation, they seem to be a bit less worried about that than we are, quite frankly. So I tend to be more worried about, will someone destroy the great, amazing quality lighting I can deliver than my neighbor down the street who's doing good air. So that's, I think, what I take away from, but I'd be curious to hear everyone else's thoughts.
Yeah. Other opinions?
Since you asked the question, let me just first say that I do agree that the lighting design community and the building design and control community speak completely different languages. And to a certain degree, they're a little bit oblivious to each other. And I think that's going to ultimately have to change. So in this new center that we formed at RPI, Energy, Built Environment and Smart Systems, I co-directed with an architect. And it's really challenging because we don't speak the same language. And so part of what we want to do is to really work on managing that interface in a way that allows us to take a look at what's going on in building control systems, which is nominally oblivious to lighting, and what's going on in lighting control systems, which is nominally oblivious to HVAC system control.
Mhm.
And the approach that I kind of outlined is that we tie it all to one thing that both sides want. They want to know where people are and what they are doing.
Mhm.
And so if you can come up with a control system that can provide that information while respecting privacy,
Mhm.
and not disclosing information to the outside world that shouldn't be disclosed. So we don't use camera systems or things like that. If you can come up with an occupancy sensing system like that, then that becomes a common point from which building controls and lighting controls can be integrated.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how I would say it. It all hinges on occupancy sensing.
Great. René, your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so you are asking what we see as trends for the coming year. So I, by the way, completely agree with the view of Bob that we need to put the lighting designer in the luminaire somehow, because the users do not know. I completely recognize that, but also I recognize that that this is a long-term road, so it will take time before we're there. So if you are asking Sigrid for the trends the coming year, then what I see at least clearly is the sustainability part. That is, I think, due to everything that happened this year, the energy crisis, it is really becoming quickly much more important. That's what I see. And that is related to energy use, but it's also the other parts of sustainability, circularity, for example. My talk was not about that at all, but I do know that in Signify, we see that as a bit an important trend. Next to the topics that we are working on also, like human-centric lighting. That's also a long road. It will take time before that is common practice. We are just at the start.
Alexander, your view?
Oh, yeah. Well, basically, it's a bit, well, maybe a bit boring to also totally agree with sentences and words that have been dropped already. But I think sustainability, that's already something we see, especially now, I mean, from Central European region, German region, there the sustainability topic is becoming a lot of speeds, also with new legislation. And when we say sustainability, I don't necessarily only mean saving energy costs, efficacy. Of course, that's in the light of energy costs, it's becoming more and more important. Again, coming back to that topic where we were a few years back, but also the other aspects of sustainability. So it's not just the energy, it's also the design, the product design, the lifetime, of course, but also what happens at the end of the lifetime. I mean, are you going to throw away the full luminaire? Big things are changing then, big things are coming ahead also in those kind of designs. And the awareness of social sustainability, or let's say social responsibility, if you want to put it as part of sustainability as well. So this is also part of the new German legislation coming up for next year. And we see that becoming a huge topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, Alexander, your research into the reliability of LED modules, I think, was really very impressive. And I come from the chip world, and I know how hard it is to stop hydrogen sulfide. So I really respect the work that's gone into the package level work that you've done. But it begs the question of, when you've got lighting fixtures that in principle will live long enough that you can actually make them part of your living will and donate them to your children, how do we change fixture design so that we have more reusable parts in the luminaire that can be repurposed as we change how they are used in the built environment? It'd be interesting to kind of see, because now the built environment typically might have, at least in the United States, a lifetime between refurbishment of maybe 8 to 10 years. And what's typically done is the lighting fixtures are torn down and thrown out. Now, when we used to have bulbs and tubes, that wasn't that big of a problem. But now with all the cost invested in a light emitting diode, it would be nice to repurpose that. And so does anybody here, because you're both from lighting companies, see a way to repurpose various components in a luminaire in ways that they can be reused and realize the lifetimes that go into the light engine?
There will be a trend towards modularity for sure. And that will also be done by legislation for sure. And that's logical. I think that is the way that will be going. And then we will go that way. It will take time, but we will go that way.
Are there solutions already there?
I think there's work going on that. And Renee, I agree, modularity, and that modularity depends to interfaces and some sort of standardization as well, so that there is an interchangeability. And I think there are trends and works going on in that, but not necessarily like from us as component provider, like LED itself, but then the next level. So wouldn't be at liberty to discuss things of others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I confirm from my side that there's a lot of work going down that path. Still a lot to be done, but a lot of good discussions also about how we declare all these things in a way that's comparable and how we protect the IP. But still, it's a question of maturity. We're still young, and as are many other people, so that's fine. And I know of very many small and niche examples of how reuse, remanufacturing is happening in very small closed loops. And I think moving forward, I would fully agree with you. Also driven by regulation, we will see this becoming more of a business model, and it's actually a chance to think about that business model. I mean, we were talking in the past that we've been working on sustainability in lighting Europe for the past 2.5 years, trying to shape the future for Europe, right, and then beyond. And at some point, the first reaction was light as a service might be coming back again from a whole different path. But do you see what I mean? You start reconsidering completely how you function and with who. And that makes for a lot of interesting new partnerships or conversion of existing partnerships.
Yeah, I think the Zaga consortium looked at a lot of that reuse capability. They might have been perhaps a little bit too early in terms of the evolution of the solid state lighting technology roadmap, but that being said, they're on the right path. The only thing that I would say is it has to become a little bit broader, because reusability and the redeployment of modified light emitting diode retrofits is going to also require an interface to the built environment, basically construction materials. How do I create edifices that are amenable to plug and play modifications in lighting? I know that at one point in time, Signify was taking a look at some of that with low voltage DC wires buried in sheetrock, where you could press light fixtures into the wall and get connections to lighting. I think that was Signify.
Signify is a very big company. I'm sorry, I'm not aware of this. This topic is very interesting, but I'm not aware of that. It could very well be.
But anyway, these kinds of broader levels of sustainability to take a look at how you could actually reuse LED lighting. It'll probably go through a separate step where you actually end up with a used lighting market. You can buy fixtures that have, another 25, 30 years of usable life, and you just shop for them online at used lighting stores. I don't know. That would be an interesting concept.
Yeah, there is a specific question coming from the audience, from Dieter. Why are you limiting the approach? I think that's the approach from René, showed to CRI 80 for respecting emotional effects. The CRI should be higher, in my opinion.
Yeah, I saw that question. So the answer to that is it's a trade-off, and I tried to show that. So it's a trade-off. I mean, it's a trade-off between CRI and melanopic light. If you accept a CRI of 80, you can generate more melanopic light than if you want to stick to CRI 90. So it's a trade-off. As I've shown that the minimum level of melanopic light that is proposed is 250 lux, and actually the Good Light Group, I think we will hear more about it later, I know that they are proposing 500 lux, and that is way far above what we are having today. So you need to apply a lot more. So ideally, you would do it with light with a CRI of 100 and with very diffuse low brightness light. That would be ideal. Yeah, but then you would need to have, I mean, large luminous surface on your complete ceiling or something. That would be ideal, but it would also be very costly. So it's a matter of trade-off between cost and effect. That is more or less what it is. By the way, we do have these kind of human-centric lighting solutions at CRI 90, generating high melanopic EDI, which is called Nature Connect. I know there's another lecture, lecture on the LED professional database. Yeah, it's a matter of trade-off between cost, melanopic light, and CRI. Mm-hmm. And generally, CRI 80 in many cases is high enough.
I have to agree. I think we are a similar path in terms of understanding, or let's say in terms of view of human-centric lighting and spectral influence onto this approach. So we're also, well, for the longest time, we also suggested to only use CR8, and we still believe that this is the best possible, or the most, let's say the sweet spot actually in terms of color rendering and the best possible melanopic efficacy. But I also have to say we're also starting to offer CR90 there, just to avoid discussions that are ending in one street education. So if CRI90 is required, here is an option, but we still tell you CRI80, and I agree with Renee there. That's a sweet spot also for the solutions that we're offering in that direction.
Okay. Now let's also have a question to all of you, which showed up recently. If you look back to the Light Fair International, they moved from an annual event to a 2B annual event, so every second year. I went also to the Lighting building in Frankfurt, and we saw a decrease of exhibitors, very, I would say, relevant, yeah. And on the other hand, I've heard that the fundings for the European Union in regards to lighting systems, and also the DOE, maybe that might be wrong, will be cutted. So my question is, I mean, to invest all these new lighting systems, which you showed, will need funding support for the industry and for research. So why do we see on one hand side some kind of cuttings for the lighting field, and on the other hand, we need that to push the lighting sector for the next years? What is your expectations and feeling in that direction?
It's a really good question. I can confirm that the Department of Energy has moved the solid state lighting program into the Building Technologies Office. And as a result, funding for solid state lighting dedicated research is going to be eliminated or included as a small subset of the Building Technologies Office budget. The reason being, you know, I think LED efficacy has gotten so good, they've declared victory and moved on. It's simple as that.
Oranje, are there programs for specifically lighting sector in Europe?
There's funding programs for research, and there could be for lighting. Frankly, I've not looked at it this year. I would agree with Bob's evaluation that that level of efficiency we've done well, and what remains is the bells and whistles sort of thing. And the problem I am often confronted with when talking to people is it pays for itself. I really don't need to subsidize it, especially at today's energy prices. It's relatively simple. It's not like changing the entire ventilation system, let's be honest, and it just pays for itself. And actually, we use that as an argument, a sales argument for many years in this industry, and it now comes back to bite us. So I think we are partially the victims of our own success. And that's why that brings me back to value proposition. How can we get married or into a closer partnership with other parts of the building and piggyback onto that? Because I think people now understand, increasingly understand better lighting and why that's a good thing and how that can be a beautiful thing for them. But you need to sort of make it accessible and probably piggyback onto the wider renovation programs. And there's a lot of money out there for wider renovation programs. So we should think about that.
Are there activities or are there, let's say, partnering opportunities there, and are there activities in forcing that in that direction?
Well, we all sit together and negotiate the future buildings requirements. We all will have to sit together and negotiate future standards or norms or whatever you want to call it around how we declare sustainability, how we measure energy efficiency, how we interact with each other in terms of interoperability and all of that. So increasingly, we do all have to open up and talk to the person next to us in the building, in the city, or whatever. And I always advocate for being one of the first people to pull up a chair around the table and just, if nothing else, you can listen at the start, but you will learn and start making friends. But increasingly in Lighting Europe, we definitely work in partnership with all these different sectors. It pays and it helps, gives us perspective and understand how to better position ourselves. And I think that will work for business for sure.
Okay. And what about the great fairs? So Light Fair International and Light and Building?
Yeah, I really enjoy meeting people. It's what I do for a living, frankly. So I also know that I was at Light and Building. I was not at Light and Building. My colleagues were at Light and Building, but I heard about it. I heard quality was good when you met people, but fewer people. In Lighting Europe, we're back to full normal meeting in person. So I think something might change. I would give it a bit more time. I think the jury's out still. I know a lot of people, especially for this year, had already made other commitments. And remember, COVID is still quite recent. Until February, March, we weren't sure, would we meet again in person, yes or no? And, you know, do we need to put trousers and shoes on again? So I'd give it a bit more time before making a decision on that one. I'm optimistic.
I think you're very right. I mean, we were also at the Light and Building actually with a very big booth, bigger than at the prior event, and to us it felt like a huge success. So maybe the numbers of visitors, I think, I'm not sure if I may disclose the numbers, but in terms of people count, it was about half. But I don't think it was actually in terms of companies. So that statistic doesn't exist. So that just every company sent half of their amount of employees that they sent prior to that. And then suddenly your count of people is half. But we had so many meetings, and compared to the list of companies we met at Light and Building before, it wasn't even less than that. Perfect. And we also know that from other partner companies, everybody has their own index. It doesn't matter if you count it with coffee or tea or the sandwiches you're handing out, but everybody can agree that it was actually, to some extent, a surprising success. And as you said, yeah, everybody was, or many were waiting. I mean, that's also understandable. Budgets are done, and then maybe you're not that quick to just move into a fair that quickly. But then also everybody was like kind of waiting and seeing what is going to happen. And everybody who was there, maybe also I'm a bit biased because everybody who was there was expecting to have a positive feeling. Everybody who wasn't there was waiting for those who were there to tell them that it was bad. But hearing the people who were there telling them it wasn't bad, I think there will be reconsiderations, as you said. So let's wait for 2 years. For in 2 years, it will be.
I, for one, wish I had gone, frankly. So I was jealous when I heard about it. So sure.
Actually, just to add, I was there. So I know Signify didn't have a booth, but I was there. And I don't ask me why Signify didn't have a booth. I'm not in charge of that. So I also think it was still a very good fair, and it was very useful. And I also think we should give it a little bit more time because there's still travel restrictions this year. So.
Yes. And it was great to meet people again face to face and have conversations.
Yeah.
You can't put a price tag to that. It was really, good.
Yeah. So I want to conclude this panel discussion with a final statement from everybody, from you asking for a final statement. So what's your advice? How shall the industry, how shall the lighting sector move on for the next year, and where should be the main focus to get the lighting sector pushed up?
I offer two.
Yes.
One is more quantifiable data on lighting spectral power distribution and human health and well-being. I think that we all know about blue light being a Zeitgeber. Melatonin does not cause sleep in people, but it is an important timekeeper in the human body. But how do we quantify the benefit of that? And how can we control lighting spectral power distribution with quantifiable human health benefits that people can realize other than, oh, I think I feel better, or I think it looks okay. When in fact, those kinds of studies are really expensive and really, really hard to do. There's some work that's coming out now from elder care facilities in terms of lighting spectral power distribution and impact on, for example, helping people avoid falls. But we're going to have to build a dollar and cents value proposition around spectral power distribution and human-centric lighting, in my opinion, to get people to really go for it. That's number one. Number two, we really need to find a way to get lighting companies to integrate more with building companies. In the States, Acuity actually bought a building management systems company. I don't think it's gone very far, but I think that we're going to really have to take a much closer look at how we continue to work on integrating construction systems and lighting systems in a holistic approach for sustainability and long-term benefit for world climate.
Well, thank you, Bob. Great statement. René?
So for the coming year, you say, yeah. So I'm afraid I am falling into repetition, but I think the most important topic that we have to work on is sustainability. But on the other hand, I also definitely believe that we have to continue to work on promote or on human-centric lighting. And I do agree with Bob. What you say is that it would be helping a lot, or maybe needed, to have a more quantified benefit. But it's, of course, something that if it was so simple, it was already there.
Yeah. Thank you, René. Rania?
I follow Bob and say two. One is I really encourage us to stay true to what we are, and that is lighting, and not just energy savings. And so while that's a great sales pitch, please don't forget to also talk about the quality, the beauty, the emotion, because that is what light is. Otherwise you switch it off and there we go, savings. So I really feel strongly about that, and I don't come from this industry, and I will continue to push for that also here in Brussels. And the other one is piggybacking on what Bob was saying, that I really think it's important to open up to new models, to open up to new partnerships, to working with different people, because everything is shifting now. So we might as well shift as well. The world is not what it used to be, and when the dust settles, the world will have changed. And so now is also a good time to take some sort of risk and play with some new ideas. What can go wrong? It keeps changing every 3 days anyway, and find a new path forward. But I would definitely, as someone who's worked for many different industries, I don't think lighting can do it alone. We won't make it. We need to be working with other people and finding those partnerships and those synergies.
Thank you, Rania, for that statement. And finally, Alexander.
So from our perspective, especially being a supplier, I mean, it also depends on which level of the chain you are. Of course, sustainability is a big topic, because where from, if not from us, is all the data coming from you will rely on then in the end towards the finished goods, right? So we take this very serious to say, okay, we need to focus on starting to provide all this data that is required early as possible and put it into the value chain. But then I also have one more topic to focus on, or one more buzzword maybe. I mean, I would love to put something out, something more visionary, and I would love to say, yeah, we will focus more on research, or maybe on like human-centric lighting and things. But what we have seen in recent discussions, what will be core importance for next year is having strong communication with all the whole value chain, especially with our direct customers, and create more flexibility. That's what we see, because everybody is telling us that visibility is more difficult now, and flexibility is becoming more of a core topic. The plans are changing, demands is there or not there, and suddenly there, and so flexibility and how to define, for example, the right modularity, the right portfolio, the right usage of components to actually create that flexibility to navigate through next year, which I think is going to be not rough. So let's see.
Yeah.
But
super. Thank you, Alexander, also for your statement. I think we worked out, it was a great panel discussion. I think we worked out some key trends which could be should be very important for the next year. And thank you very much to all participants here, panelists, and also thank you for your lecture.
And thank you. Hopefully see you soon in Bregenz, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Great meeting you.
That brings us to our next point. That's the award ceremony. And I want to first give you some topics here. The awards, the submission were evaluated according to the degree of innovation, the relevance for application and sustainability, and the importance for the light and lighting sector. That was were the criteria. And the awards, we got 5 product awards, 1 sustainability award, 1 scientific paper award, and 1 achievement award. And now the first product award goes to Nichia with the system Dynasolis. And the statement of the jury: the connection between health and light is increasingly recognized in greater depths and will become even more significant in the future. The Dynasolis innovation is an entirely new LED tuning solution that regulates circadian rhythms by adjusting melanopic illuminance and color temperature while maintaining high CRI and efficacy. It is the combination of energizing azure, sky blue, and a peaceful, calming warm white hue, focusing on the non-visual element that truly addresses human-centric lighting. Application range from medical office, education, and even residentials. So congratulations to the Nichia Dynasolis product. I think we heard a very similar approach, right, from René. So the next product award goes to Samsung with the LH502D, and the statement of the jury. For example, in Europe, more than 50% of outdoor lighting seems to be outdated. There are safety, security, and consumption issues given. The LH502D shows high performance in multiple core reliability tests with an increased lifetime. The new 3-layer anti-sulfurization ceramic coating technology with a 50/50 LED package offers improved performance with reduced cost to support investments for new and retrofit installations, especially for harsh environments such as street and tunnel lighting. Congratulations to the Samsung LH502D. Yes, congratulations.
thank you.
Yes, yeah. Then the next product award goes to Ledil from Finland for the Yasmin product. That's a zoom optic family with no axle moving parts for retail applications. And the statement of the jury, I want to explain you that in detail. The Yasmin Zoom optic family that enables new lighting possibility thanks to its flexibility and adaptability. Yasmin Zoom optics are unique as they have designed with no axial moving parts. Luminaires can be made smaller, are easier to design, and fit into existing track light concepts. Yasmin Zoom optics can be used for compact retail lighting luminaire designs that demand the flexibility of easily adjusting zoom optics in a single luminaire. Yasmin Zoom optics also support sustainability. There is no need to replace and possibly dispose of luminaires. Congratulations to Ledil for the Yasmin product. I have had the chance to obtain and test this product also at the Light and Building in Frankfurt. The next product award goes to LpS Osram for the DALI Pro 2 IoT. That's a lighting control unit as IoT cloud gateway and DALI-based system, especially for IoT digitized buildings. And the statement of the jury, DALI Pro 2 IoT is a lighting control technology with an integrated IoT gateway and open REST MQTT API, provide access to cloud application, thus enabling IoT use cases. Luminaire information, energy consumption, and maintenance data can be pushed to the cloud. The energy monitoring and maintenance assistant cloud service enables facility managers to monitor their lighting installation, gain insight into individual energy consumption areas, identify maintenance needs, and making system updates remotely. This enables energy cost and investment reduction, especially for replacements savings. So congratulations to LpS Osram for the DALI Pro 2 IoT. The next product award goes to the company Enocean for the STM550. That's a multi-sensor for temperature, humidity, lighting, solar-powered wireless for IoT digitized buildings. The statement of the jury, the STM550 multi-sensor family combines temperature, humidity, lighting, acceleration, and magnetic contact sensors in a small case. The multi-sensor is for the Enocean wireless standard as well as for Bluetooth systems, and can be used for IoT and digitized building applications. An integrated solar cell supplies the sensor itself with energy for uninterrupted operation over several days with little or no light. ST550 operates completely maintenance-free. It can also be integrated into a wide variety of assets and therefore can be used where the data is needed. For example, on walls, ceilings, windows, doors, furniture, active devices, and objects. The multi-sensor has an integrated NFC interface for configuration and commissioning. So congratulations to Enocean for the STM550. That's also really fits completely in the discussion we had during the panel session. And then we award also this year the Sustainability Award for a product, and this time it goes to TE Connectivity for the product LumaWise. It's a motion sensor for public lighting with presence detection for a large range of 30 meters times 6 meters area. So the statement of the jury, just a second. The statement of the jury, LumaWise is a new motion sensor designed to bring sustainability and efficiency to street lighting architecture. With detection zones up to 30 times 6 meters and strong infrared sensing capabilities, LumaWise motion sensor can light the way even in harsh environments, enabling energy savings from dimming or even turning off a luminaire while still be able to react to motion and bring a luminaire to full brightness for safety and security reasons. LumaWise motion will fit into the Zaga D4i ecosystem, which is the new standard for smart cities, working as a standalone control device or in combination with Zaga D4i photocell or communication node for greater levels of controls. The sensor is a pluggable device with the standard Zaga Book 18 interface for an easy upgrade. So congratulations to TE Connectivity for LumaWise motion sensor. Now, these are the product awards, and that brings us next to also annually the Scientific Best Paper Award. And here, these are the shortlisted papers that the jury evaluated. First of all, it's the paper from Beckema, Martin et al., Additive Driving Beam Headlights, a collaborative approach to efficient manufacturing of complex shaped optical LSR parts, published in Lab Professional Review 93, September-October this year. The second is from Hitz Tobias, durability enhancement of formable reflectors for UV sterilization in LPR 90. And third, Eric Virey, will micro-LEDs revolutionize the display industry, published in issue 94, November-December this year. And the best paper, that's the short list, the best paper goes to Dr. Eric Virey for his paper, Will Micro-LEDs Revolutionize the Display Industry? The statement of the jury: the lecture gives a profound overview of technology at the edge of commercial implementation. It describes various aspects, both commercial and technological. It shows hurdles and chances and compares them with competing technologies such as LCD and OLEDs. And if it's possible, I wish that Eric will join us. Hello, Eric. Congratulations to the Best Paper Scientific Award 2020.
Hello, thank you so much. Thank you very much, Siegfried. Good afternoon, everybody. And I'm very pleased and also very humbled to be recognized by the LpS award juries, especially after hearing about the product awards and all those products that really actually improve lighting applications and quality of life. So I'd like to, of course, thank the LED professional team and editors for giving me and Yole Intelligence photonic and display teams the opportunity to contribute our knowledge to the magazine. I really hope it was useful for the readers and the LED community.
Absolutely. Eric, congratulations. I think you are joining us from the States as well, right? Or where are you? Yeah, from the States.
I am in Portland, Oregon, on the West Coast, yes. On
the West Coast. Eric, two questions shortly in that regards. First of all, could you, in a few sentences, put a summary for our audience? What's the conclusion of your investigation about the display sector? And the second question, how do you see micro LEDs for general lighting or for the lighting domain?
Yeah, so in terms of displays, both mini and micro LEDs are generating a lot of interest right now. Micro LED is still in a very, very early stage. It's a very promising technologies, but there's still a lot of roadblocks in manufacturing. I would say micro LED, the science is here. It's no longer a science project, but it's a gigantic engineering and manufacturing project. And in that regard, I'm really excited to see AMS Austrian's announcement that they're investing 800 million euros in a 8-inch micro LED fab. And I think it's also interesting because it's going to cross-pollinate into lighting applications. So it's $1 billion investment in micro LED chip manufacturing technologies are also fostering new manufacturing paradigms. And I'm really expecting this to ripple into other applications, existing lighting applications, and probably also in the near future enable new applications. And what comes to mind would be improve optical interconnects, high bandwidth, visible lighting communications, etc.
Okay.
So I think the excitement in micro LED displays is going to benefit the entire LED industry.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you for this super paper. We enjoyed that. Thank you also for joining for this for your short talk, and all the best.
Yeah, thank you again for the opportunity to collaborate, and I'm looking forward contributing again, if possible, to LpS and the community.
Super,
thank you.
super. Thank you. Thank you very much. This time, for the first time, we do also award the so-called Achievement Award for a person who did especially a lot of contribution to the lighting sector. So it's the first time we did that, and we want also to continue annually in that sense. And this year's first time LpS Digital Achievement Award goes to Mr. Jan Denneman. And Jan Denneman, the statement of the jury, Jan Denneman has dedicated over 40 years of his professional career to developing and promoting the lighting sector. He has initiated several international consortia like the Global Lighting Association, SAGA, the Connected Lighting Alliance, and Lighting Europe. He also founded the Good Light Group, where he nowadays serves as a chairman. He is passionate about light and health and rethinking lighting again. Jan, congratulations to this achievement award. And if it's possible to join right now for your acceptance speech, let's see if that works. Great. Hello, Jan. Congratulations to this achievement award.
In the jury of LpS to give me this great honor and this great recognition. For me, it always has been a big pleasure to work not only for my company in those years, Philips Lighting or now Signify, but also cooperate with colleagues of many other companies around the world, because that gives me energy, and that leads also to a significant more interesting lighting market, but also to much better lighting. So that was always my focus in the years. My current focus is what I believe that is the real future of lighting now. After everything we did, the lighting sector, for energy savings, energy efficiency, sustainability, which was a great contribution to society, the next big thing is health. Because light has such an important influence, positive influence on light and happiness. And the fact is that most of the people are sitting the whole day in biological darkness, where we know, and science is very clear about this, that does not help synchronizing the biological clock. Consequences are bad sleep, not enough energy during the day, mood problems, and diseases. So we created a group, and this is an invitation to all people who also believe that we fundamentally need to change indoor lighting. Please join the Good Light movement and reach out to us.
Jan, that's
great. Thank you very much for this great award.
Yes, that's a great statement. I think also we covered that in our discussions and in the presentations, I think light and health, that will be much more important in the future. And you're working a lot in this direction with the Good Light Group. Thanks a lot also for that. And congratulations again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.
All the best. So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our LpS Digital 2022 Summit. Again, congratulations to every winner of the LpS Digital Awards this year. And I want to thank very much our 4 keynote speakers, our supporting team, which worked as a jury in the organization. And especially, I want to say thank all the audience joining the LpS Digital this year. We will inform you about updates. We will notify you about the dates for coming year events. And when you leave the Zoom session, you will be asked for a short feedback to help us to improve the event. Thank you then also for that. Now, on behalf of the entire team, I wish you all the best, a peaceful New Year 23, and take care. Bye-bye.